Well, Erik, it's nice to see you again. Gosh, I think the last time I saw you was at our most recent European conference, right?
It's been a while, that's for sure. It's great to catch up again, Rodney.
Well, it sure is. And I guess, now we're catching up remotely, but that's the way of life for at least a few more months. So, Erik, you and I were talking about digital services taxes, and I know it's a space that you're doing a lot in. What are you talking with people about?
Sure. Thanks, Rodney. I appreciate that. Yeah, I will say that we've been talking to more and more clients around digital services taxes, mainly because you start to see a proliferation of digital services taxes being enacted around the globe. Obviously, with what's happening with BEPS 2.0 and the delay in reaching global consensus, we have more unilateral measures that are being enacted, and so taxpayers are having to address those. And there's a number of issues that they're having to face. One is just the scale. How do you stay abreast of all the DSTs that are being enacted? You start to see the developments in Africa where they're starting to propose their own. You start to see what's happening in the EU that says that they'll propose their own digital services tax, absent a global consensus being reached. And so all of these are starting to compile. And what taxpayers were able to do before was, address the one-offs like France. But now, because of the volume of the DSTs, it's becoming more complicated for them to actually comply. And so they're having to get a handle on what the rules are, what's in scope, because each jurisdiction is slightly different in terms of how they approach what's in scope, as well as their sourcing mechanisms to determine what the liability is in the country. And then how they comply is different within each jurisdiction. And so whether they need to register or whatnot is becoming more increasingly challenging around the globe as far as how do they actually comply. So that's what we've been talking to a lot of folks about right now.
You make an interesting point about the proliferation because, first off, it's very hard to keep track of all these things, but what are you talking to clients about in terms of actually being able to comply with this multitude of new taxes should they come to pass?
Yeah, and that's one of the areas that we have been focused on is just how do you create an infrastructure to be able to manage all of the DSTs that are coming online and the compliance associated with that. And so we've been creating a technology solution to help taxpayers with that, where we can extract the data from their systems, actually put it into a calculation engine, which will help them figure out what the liability associated with each jurisdiction is, and then ultimately to a compliance engine to put the numbers on a form. So that technology solution exists today, and we've been assisting taxpayers with helping in the compliance process and trying to automate that so that they don't have so many manual processes to manage all the various DSTs that are enacted around the globe.
Gosh, because I can imagine that that's almost, if people think about the technical rules and the technical impacts, that's fine. And then there's the numbers, but then actually getting it accomplished on a timely basis just has to be a huge part of the discussion, I'm figuring. Well, I'm sure, Erik, that digital services taxes are with us to stay almost regardless of what happens at the global level. It just seems, given the proliferation, right? So I'm sure that this is going to be keeping you pretty busy for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, I think so. And just given, even an anecdote, right, is, I think it's been made clear that the U.S. Does not want to subsidize these taxes. And so the foreign tax credit regulations that were recently issued just noted that they would not be allowing a foreign tax credit associated with these taxes. And so you'll start to see where obviously there'll be, I think, many companies who are looking to see a global consensus reached. But in the interim, the proliferation of these DSTs are causing concern from a compliance perspective, obviously the ability to credit these taxes, et cetera. So just a number of issues to think through for those that are in scope for digital services taxes.
And Erik, in closing then, if I was going to ask you for a piece of advice for folk that are wrestling with this, what would your what would your first piece of advice be to them as they think about this area?
Yeah, my thought would be that I think one, you need to understand that the types of data that you're going to need in order to be able to comply.
Yep.
A lot of this information is not something that's in our core ERP systems today, and so understanding where to get that data will be critical. And then just taking the volume of data that's going to be needed. Obviously, as these start to proliferate and more jurisdictions come online, really think you need to kind of think about the process that you're going to have to be able to comply and manage that compliance process, because it's just significant amount of data. And albeit the calculations are somewhat simple, the data needed is vast, and just to manage that on a go-forward basis, I think will be a challenge. So just thinking about that process will be important.
Well, and those processes always take longer to embed than you think possible. So I'm sure, like I said, it's going to keep you super busy. Well, look, Erik,
That's right.
it's been great catching up with you again, and I look forward to getting out to Portland sometime in the near future.
Same here, Rodney. It's always great to catch up, and looking forward to seeing each other live soon.